Okay. So if I haven't had the chance to formally meet you, my name is Stephanie Kuntz. I am a proud alum of the class of 2008, and I have the honor of serving as our alumni director at Walsh University in North Canton, Ohio, which also happens to be Ben's alma mater. And this evening, I'm honored to serve as the moderator of our conversation this evening and getting to know Ben, his journey since he was at Walsh, and what he's been up to professionally over the last several years working in the Silicon Valley. So just a couple of things that I just want to have as far as housekeeping. So we will talk together for about 30 minutes, and then at the end, there will be opportunity for Q&As. So I'm actually going to turn off the side chat while Ben is speaking. And if you have a question that you think of during his conversation, feel free to send the message to me directly. And then at the end, we'll have the opportunity to get many of those questions answered. But a little bit about this Cavs Connect program. It's actually a new initiative that we launched over the summer and really wanting to help connect with alumni all over the region and country and world, and have the opportunity to connect them back with their alma mater and with our fellow students. So I know that we actually have both alumni and students on the call tonight, and we're really excited to hear from Ben as he shares his story with us. So enough about me. I'm going to kick it over to Ben and tee him off with an introductory question. So first of all, let me say thank you to you, Ben, for joining us from sunny San Francisco. Sadly, here in Ohio, we don't have the same sunshine, but we look forward to hearing what it is that you have to share with us. And with that, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Ben Davis. I am originally from Cleveland, so Stephanie, I used to feel your pain with the weather. I've been in San Francisco now for a little bit over 20 years, but was born and raised in Cleveland Heights. Parents moved to Shaker Heights for a little while, then back to Cleveland Heights. So I am true to my my Cleveland roots, and though I'm out here in San Francisco, I still feel the pain of the Browns, and still consider myself a diehard Clevelander.
I love that. The Browns are they're making it happen. Let's see if they can continue to win. It's against a good team, right?
Cautiously optimistic. So
yes,
that's what I like to say.
I think that we all are.
Yeah.
As far as your journey from Shaker Heights over to Walsh, what made you choose Walsh and major in business?
I was recruited to play basketball. So Jeff Young, who is the current coach, came out to visit me, and I picked Walsh. It was close to home. I liked JY and the head coach, and went to Walsh to play basketball and pursue a degree in business. Kind of following in the footsteps of my dad and my grandfather in terms of pursuing a life in business. I didn't know I would end up specifically in technology, but over the years fell in love with high tech, and that's what brought me out to San Francisco. Wanted to be in Silicon Valley, wanted to learn about technology and follow kind of that path.
Interesting. So when did you make that move in your career?
97. At the time, I had been selling copiers for my dad's Xerox agency for a couple years, and really enjoyed selling copiers. Learned the art of professional selling, but wanted to do something a little bit more high tech. And so, there's no better place to be in the world than Silicon Valley. So literally just packed up the car in 97 and drove out to San Francisco, got a job selling computer-aided engineering and computer-aided manufacturing software, and worked for a couple big companies, for about 10 years, about seven or 8 years out in the Bay Area. And decided that, I could start a company and, kind of left the corporate world and founded a mobile gaming company in 2002. And, that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial career.
So when you decided to pack up your car and head across country, did you have a plan as far as what you were going to do when you made it to the Silicon Valley?
Um, a loose plan. And that plan was just to really continue my sales career with the intention of getting into sales management. So I knew that I still had a lot to learn, from a technology perspective. I thought about going back to school, but figured I could do it myself. I could read a lot, and surround myself with people that were in that field. My intention was to get a job with a high tech company as a salesperson.
So once you moved to the West Coast and you were established in that career, did you find it difficult breaking into that sales and .com tech culture that has been so prevalent out there for years?
Yeah. It's breaking in is not the easiest thing to do, but my mentality was just to be relentless in my pursuit. And so, I had goals that I wanted to accomplish. And, there's always obstacles. There's always things that are going to get in the way. But, I was able to break in with a pretty good company early on selling engineering software, and it forced me to learn about technology. And so once I was kind of in the game, then it made everything a little bit easier down the road.
So I think it's interesting to think about, Ben, when nowadays, even in the last 5 years, how much technology has changed, and even having our phones at our fingertips, the ability to lean on a network and ask for a reference or ask for a name if you're trying to get in contact with potentially a business that you're wanting to get in front of, or an individual that you're wanting to connect with. What would you say was the best way that you helped, or the best way that you were able to network when you were early in your career in the tech industry?
So the first company I started working for was a company called Parametric Technology. And that's the engineering software company that I spent a couple years with. After PTC, I went to a company called EMC. They've since merged with Dell, but I was in the internet.com division. And so, these companies were getting funded just on business plans without, really any sense of a viable business. But they had lots of money and they needed storage in anticipation of growing, these big businesses. And so I spent a lot of time, with these companies, but also with the venture capital firms that were funding them, because they wanted to understand what their money was going to be spent on. And so that was really my first introduction into the venture capital world, which I had no understanding of prior to that. And so working, for a major storage technology company put me in front of, all these different companies and VCs. And that's when I really started getting the itch to, at some point start my own company, because I felt that, if everyone that I was around could do it, then, I felt that I could as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you had to work harder to break into that culture at all, being a minority?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it was probably harder being African American and not being part of the VC club, if you will. But I never really focused on that. It was always in the back of my mind, but way, way back. I just knew that I probably had to work harder, probably had to make, 50 more calls a day, or have, how many ever more meetings. I never would let that be front and center, because, it could really get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish. So I just adopted the mentality of having to, put a little bit more effort than maybe I would had I been a white male and gone to Harvard or Dartmouth or or if I came from a environment that, was embodied with that culture. But, I'm happy that, I had to do what I had to do because, I could stay true to myself and true to my values. And, it just kind of proves the point that you can really do, whatever you want when you put your mind to it. Yes, you have to be creative, and yes, you've got to have some thick skin, but, it wouldn't be worth pursuing if it was easy.
Mhm. I love that. So I know you had alluded to this in one of your previous comments, but what ultimately made you leave corporate America, and bet on yourself and going out on your own?
Yeah, there's probably two big reasons for that. One, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather in Birmingham, Alabama, was owned and operated the only Black service station in the 40s and 50s and 60s. I actually worked at his service station, pumping gas and helping change oil, as early as 8 years old. My dad went on to be an entrepreneur. He was one of the first African American owner operators of cable television stations in the early '80s. So it's kind of in my blood. I never knew that. I never set out, to say I want to be an entrepreneur, but just growing up in that environment, I think, pushed me in that direction. The other reason is, while at these big corporations, I was passed over a couple times for promotions that I knew that I should have gotten. Looking back, I'm probably glad I wasn't promoted, because I may never have left that environment, but I was definitely passed over, some promotions that I felt strongly I should have gotten. And so, it's a pretty easy decision. Start a company, create the culture that I want, and I'll never have to worry about someone else, promoting me.
Mhm. So tell me about Fizzle. How did Fizzle come about?
Yeah. So, I talked a little bit about my love for technology. Technology is really the future. Well, more so than it has ever been. I think we're going through another major industrial revolution. But when I first started Fizzle, I wanted to combine my passion for sports and technology, and so we came up with some ideas around fan engagement. And so, one of the major channels early was the mobile phone, and specifically with text messaging. And so we created some unique solutions that enabled fans to engage with their favorite teams, their favorite brands related to their favorite teams, and capture data and help sports teams better engage with their fans and provide better engagement for their sponsors and advertisers. So I literally just wanted to work in sports, but I didn't want to work for a sports team. And so the best thing to do was to build a company that was focused on fan engagement.
And since then, I see that Fizzle rather, has made a pivot into new technology. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So, um, I was having some difficulty really in scaling the business. We had a good business that was generating a couple $1 million a year in revenue. And, I could have just ran the company, as a lifestyle company. But I wanted to do something bigger. We did have an amazing kind of technology um, history. We built some really amazing technology that, frankly, I had a difficult time selling in the sports industry. And so, in 2017, we started talking about how we could take what we've learned, apply some new methodologies in terms of development and technology, and attack a broader market that could have an even greater impact than anything that we could have ever imagined that, fan engagement could have done. And so I've been working with Cisco for a long time. And I literally met with a couple folks that I knew at Cisco, identified some significant gaps that we could potentially fulfill for Cisco, identified what those problems were, and went to work in building a completely new platform. And this platform is really focused on the Internet of Things, IoT, which I believe is really the future. It is going to change the way that we live. It's going to have, a dramatic impact on our lives as well as our kids and our kids' lives. And so, was very fortunate to be able to bring on some really talented developers and build a solution that is really poised to have a really big impact, on how life. On how we live our lives going forward.
So as far as, many of those decisions that you made in working with Cisco, it sounds like you did a lot of data analyzing and, researching for them. How many clients would you say that you have now that you work with, and how big is your team since you guys have taken off?
Yeah, so in terms of our overall business, we've got just under 100 customers, but most of those customers are on our legacy platform. Right now we've got a handful of customers that are on the new platform. But the scale and the magnitude of our new solution, is ginormous compared to what we've done previous. So, one customer in our new platform, is potentially doing 20 times the amount of revenue as all of our customers on our legacy platform combined. I unfortunately can't name the first customer, but I will be able to soon. There'll be some announcements soon, but it's anticipated that our platform is going to save them almost $1 billion a year. And so that's a big number, even for a $50 billion revenue generating company, and it's all really through automation and digitization of scientific data. So it's a really big shift going from sports, marketing, fan engagement to pharmaceutical manufacturing. But from the standpoint of IoT, and specifically our solution, which is really focused on edge computing. The industries that we potentially could disrupt, range from automotive transportation to aerospace, utilities, food manufacturing. We've got a lot of momentum right now in pharmaceutical manufacturing.
So I know that obviously when you talked about gaming early and, it aligning with your passions as a former athlete, sports was probably something that, came natural to you and you naturally gravitated toward. When it comes to IoT, technology specifically, what excites you most about that?
Really the impact that the technology can make, not only on companies, but on people's lives. You mentioned earlier in the conversation, data. You'll hear people say data is the new oil. And so, that is as valuable as an asset as it exists today. And so being able to dynamically look at vast amounts of data and automate critical and mission critical decision making, will save lives. It will save billions of dollars. It will make our lives better. And so being able to be right in the middle of this type of kind of revolutionary change is extremely exciting.
And do you feel like, as far as, again, the shift that's happening in this world of technology, do you feel like you got in this space early or right on time? Do you feel like you're amongst those, early folks that were in this game faster?
Yeah, I think finally we're, in this world, timing is as important as the power of your technology. When I first started the mobile marketing the mobile gaming business, I think I was, a couple years too early. And then, when with our fan engagement business, I think we were maybe a little bit early. But in terms of edge computing and IoT, I think we're, right in the sweet spot. IoT has not taken off like a lot of analysts think that it would have taken off. And at Phizzle, we firmly believe that that is because of the lack of innovation, specifically in edge computing. We all understand the cloud, and we all know that, the cloud has had a huge impact on our lives. But with the vast amount of data that's being generated, we can't afford to send and process that much data in the cloud. It's got to be processed at the edge. And so, I think for the first time in my career, I'm not early. And, you could look at being early as, being innovative and being, forward thinking. But if you're too early, sometimes it's really difficult to make something work.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. So I know that you said when you took that chance on yourself, you really wanted to create that culture that you had always sought for yourself as an employee. Can you tell me a little bit about the culture that you created for your team over at Phizzle?
Yeah. So, we have some really, really smart people. And, the last thing that I ever want to be is a micromanager. And so I have been laser focused on hiring, people that are smarter than me, and that, that do not need micromanagement. And, with that freedom, I think it creates a sense of happiness, of purpose. Everyone has skin in the game. Everyone that's part of Phizzle has equity in the company. So we are all working, collaboratively towards the same goal. And so, this means that, we have the same aspirations financially, but at the same time, it's so much more than that. I think we all want to make a huge impact on the world, and we want to have fun while we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to pivot quickly here and think more now.
No pun intended. So.
To our students who may be on the call. So first, a personal question: what would be a word of advice that you would give to your graduating self? So when you walked across that stage at Walsh University, what would be a word of advice that you would give to yourself?
Develop my sales skills immediately. I think, a lot of people tend to forget. Salespeople often have a negative connotation, right? You think when you think sales, you think, pushy, you think someone trying to get something out of you, but it's so much more than that, because you're always selling yourself, and you're selling your vision, you're selling your mentality. And so that has as much of an impact in everything that we do in life, from, just, trying to get into a school, or trying to get into graduate school, or, whatever it is that you want to accomplish in life, you're going to have to sell yourself, at some point. And so that's an invaluable skill to build upon early.
So how do you think Walsh helped prepare you to navigate the competitive environment?
Well, Walsh, I am eternally grateful to Walsh, for giving me the opportunity to come and play basketball and attend school. When I was back then, I wasn't as focused as I would have liked to have been. And so, Walsh took a chance on me and provided me an environment where, I could really learn and experience what it was like being on my own, taking classes, working towards, achieving a degree. I'll never forget my senior business class. We had to go out and work with a real company. And, our group, we worked with a company called Fogle's Create a Book. I'll never forget. I mean, we're going back, more than, 30 years ago. And, I got to work with the husband and wife and helping them to develop a strategy, a business plan. And that was part of our senior project. And even after school, I actually did some consulting for Fogle's Create a Book. I have no idea where they are now or what happened, but that single experience, I think, was embedded into my being, and that's what I do today. And so I am, eternally grateful for that experience.
So as far as I know, we have some freshmen and some sophomores on the call. What advice would you give those students who are also pursuing a business degree?
To get into technology as quickly as possible. So, with automation and digitization, jobs are being taken because of the ability to automate. And so new jobs are going to be created. And so, as much as you can to learn about technology, I would say is critical to ensuring that you have a place in the workforce forever. Knowledge workers, and especially those that are focused on technology, have the best chance to make it big and provide that longevity.
So Ben, now going long term and down the road, what do you want your legacy to be?
What do I want my legacy to be? I probably want to be looked at as someone that had high quality values. I think my investors and my board, I think, they are appreciative of the effort that I've put in to protect their investment. And, the reason why I have gone to the ends of the earth to do that is because, when I went out and was raising money, I looked people in their eye and said, I will, do the best I can with the money that you invest in this company. And so, there's been times that I could have quit, that people suggested that I quit. But I think, having the type of integrity to do what you say you're going to do is hugely important. And, that might not sound like anything that's, over the moon, but I think that's what I would like my legacy to be.
I think that's an incredible one, if you're asking me. And I know that I noticed that bookcase behind you. Do you mind sharing with us what book you're currently reading, or maybe a favorite read, if you don't have one you're currently reading?
Yeah, so, I do not have a computer science degree. I don't know how to program. And so, what we have developed is an incredibly technical solution. So the only way that I can keep up with, my CTO and my CIO and all of our developers is to try and educate myself as much as possible. So the book I'm reading right now is called The Master Algorithm. And it's a book about machine learning and artificial intelligence, which is the industry that we are participating in. And so, I'm always reading something to help advance my knowledge of, where this world is heading.
That's great. So as promised, we are closing in on our half-hour mark with Ben. If you have questions that you would like to ask him that have come up as he has been sharing over the last half an hour, please feel free to write them in the comments, or if you want to raise your hand, I'd be happy to unmute you. I know that Carrie Lynn on our team actually just sent a really great question. And Carrie Lynn, I'm actually going to unmute you if you wouldn't mind asking that question to Ben directly. Let me see if we can get this to go. Give me just a moment. Go ahead, Carrie Lynn.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for sharing. I'm the Director of Multicultural Affairs here at Walsh. And one question I have is that one of the challenges we have is retention of African-American students, especially from their freshman to sophomore year. So what advice would you give us to what new programming or something that you felt was missing when you were here that maybe we can implement in order to retain students? My ultimate goal always is that they graduate. And that's what when they see me, they like, oh, you keep telling us we need to graduate. Absolutely. So what advice would you give us as we continue to move forward and improve our retention rates?
Yeah, so thanks for that question, Carrie Lynn. I think it really comes down to personalizing an experience for someone, with all kinds of backgrounds, with all types of different experiences, and especially for those that, may have come from a challenging environment. It is critical to build a connection with someone to truly understand what drives them and what's important. Not that you've got the resources or even the scalability to do that in a very granular way, but if you can connect with someone to really understand what drives them, and then, at a high level, create, a program or something that is going to keep them engaged, something that is relevant to what they're interested in. I think that's the only way to do that for people that come from challenging backgrounds. For me personally, I come from a family of overachievers. So I was very lucky to have, that ingrained into my being, no matter how unfocused I was at the time. So I think it's finding that connection, that is related to what they're interested in, and figuring out creative ways to, make that connection in terms of an educational pursuit to build on that interest.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So Ben, I actually have another question here from Luke. And Luke, I'm going to unmute you as well, if you wouldn't mind asking your question.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Ben, thank you again for taking some time this evening. My question relates a little bit to your point of creating that personalized connection. What's the best way for students to be able to maybe reach out to individuals like yourself, companies like yours, to create that personal connection? Whether that's an internship opportunity, whether that's just a mentorship role. But what would be your best way or the best method for a student to maybe make those connections across the country, but yet still having this common link of Walsh University? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So out here in California, I work with an organization called Junior Achievement. And so what we do is we are constantly putting on kind of mini conferences where we get the best and the brightest entrepreneurs, technologists together, and put programs together to speak to all of the kids that are participating in a very kind of macro focused environment, but then drilling down to to almost like to group sessions. And so, we regularly challenge the kids to put together business plans and to come up with ideas, on how they could have an impact, on the world, or expanding on something that they're interested in. And so, I don't know if there's a branch in Ohio or anywhere near Canton, but putting together a program like that is not a very difficult thing to do. I could see Walsh having a program similar to that. And, I have met with hundreds, if not thousands of kids, and talked about, my journey, my experiences, but also challenging kids on, what they want out of life. I mean, you don't have to be a superstar athlete or a superstar, Steve Jobs like person to have an impact. And when you can make a connection, with someone and demonstrate to them that, anybody can have an impact, then, I think that's a great way to make those types of connections. At Phizzle, we always have internships, over the summers, up until this past summer, we have always had internships. So I think there's lots of unique ways to really get in front of kids, especially when they're impressionable. And I think, it's something that should be done, not necessarily when they're in high school or college, but when, they're young. Our world has changed so dramatically that you've kind of got to be a little bit on the ball at a much earlier age, than when I was coming up. When I was coming up, only thing I cared about, my summer jobs were cutting grass and caddying. These days, it's like, if you better get an internship, otherwise you're going to be behind the 8 ball. But I think making those connections is not a hard thing to do. It just takes some leadership, to put the programs together. I don't know if that answered your question. I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent there, but.
So Ben, my last question for you, and this is probably the most challenging one of the evening, if you're ready for it.
Okay.
So what's next for you?
Well, so, making the pivot that we did is almost like starting a new company. We will leave our legacy technology and platform behind. We're probably going to sell the company. There hopefully will be an announcement in the next couple of weeks on the sale of that business, so that we can really focus on IoT and specifically edge computing. I talked a little bit about what we're doing in pharmaceutical manufacturing, but what's really next, something that I have a lot of interest in, is disrupting transportation, both automotive and aerospace. Some of these, a lot of the airplane manufacturers, they generate 10 terabytes of data every 30 minutes. And it is just virtually impossible to leverage all of that data by sending it to the cloud. So much of that data is going to have to be processed in the edge while the plane is flying and making mission critical decisions, while in flight. I'm super interested in disrupting those industries.
Wow. Well, I am actually going to unmute our president here. Dr. Tim Collins has joined us, and I will give him a moment to say hello and any remarks that you have for Ben.
Well, first, swords up. Ben, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight in Cavs Connect and sharing with us your thoughts. The Master Algorithm, if all of y'all haven't read that book, it's a good book for all of us, because all of us are going to have to be versed in this as we go forward. I think is sort of what Ben is really telling all of us right there. So I'd encourage everybody to add that to our list. Ben, I appreciate Steph's questions there. I appreciate you being here, particularly since we're trying to think about how we activate this experience, as Carrie Lynn was sort of intimating as well, that if our students can really feel connected to what they're doing and get this vision of what this is all about, I think will increase our likelihood that they'll graduate. Because Carrie Lynn walks around and says that to everybody, not just the students. So she even says it to you visiting us tonight. So that's how committed she is to all of this. But just on behalf of all of us, sir, thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to put a last call. Do we have any other questions for Ben?
Dr. Dunphy's asking.
Oh, let me unmute you. It's hard to see everybody in my panel here. Go ahead.
We're good. Oh, great. I'll echo Tim's comment first. Ben, thanks for being here with us and sharing your story, which is extraordinarily interesting. And I think all the points you made, particularly for our students, are spot on. Really admire your work ethic and your commitment to innovation, which is something that is really needed in America right now. I wanted to make you aware of something, and also kind of just almost like an ask to some degree. So right now we're in the midst of a new offering that we're putting out there through the university, which is called the Skilled Technical Workforce Program, which is focusing on IoT, data analytics, and premier skills kind of blended into a dynamic singularity. And what you're talking about is exactly the space that we're in terms of big data. It's interesting to me that you have innovated a way to be able to collect the data and manage it at the edge, because the standard systems don't do that. So good for you. That's a huge jump forward. So I wanted to certainly wanted to see if there's some way at some point soon we could connect you in terms of just talking to you about what you do in a more detailed way. We are reaching out to the community pretty much in Stark County and also in Ohio to help businesses in our area learn how to do this, how to deploy IoT and data analytics in a real meaningful way. And ultimately, we've connected to the National Science Foundation. We're really trying to make this one of Walsh's signature programs. And you certainly have done it. You have made it come to life in a real way. And you're modeling what Walsh is all about in terms of being an ethical a CEO and a person who really cares about integrity. That's what we're all about too. So would certainly like to invite you to be part of this to some degree, talk to you about where you're at and what you might be able to bring to the table, just in terms of helping us become better at what we do. And certainly we would get students involved and help them learn about this, because I think what you're doing is so cutting edge. It's where we're headed, no doubt about it. So want to make you aware of that, and thank you for your time tonight. I learned a couple things. I'm definitely going to read Master Algorithm. It's on my list right away.
Yeah, good luck. It's one of those kind of books that you've got to kind of read twice.
You got to growl through it, right? Yeah. Double airplane read.
Yeah, but it would be my pleasure to help out and participate, where I could add some value.
Awesome. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, with that, we are at 7:45, and as promised, we were going to keep this to 45 minutes for all of you. And I know we had several folks on the line, including colleagues of Ben's, Walsh alumni, faculty, staff, students. So on behalf of Walsh University, Ben, thank you so much for your generous gift of time and for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. I know that a lot of it was a little bit over my head, and by the end of it, I understood what you meant when you said on the edge. I was a little confused, but I did finally catch on, and we could not thank you enough for your time and your willingness to participate as our panelists tonight. So
thank you. It's my pleasure.
So very much. Swords up, everybody.